And welcome in to the Week 8 live show here on the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Trey, 8-layered Saturday delivered in spades. We got classics from morning till night. We had rivalries deliver. We had upsets galore, even starting all the way back to Friday night. There's a lot to break down and kind of sort through here, try and figure out maybe is the playoff picture starting to become a little bit more clear. We'll talk about that. But man, you and I both had busy days. We were running around at different points during the game day, but it felt like every time we got to sit back down, watch the games, throw in the quad box. I mean, it was a golden Saturday, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those quad box isn't enough Saturdays, right? We had, especially in the early window and the late window here, as we're still having some finals trickle in. This Missouri Auburn game that has kind of gone off the rails here in double overtime. But man, yeah, just one of those all timer Saturdays. And it really paid off. We've been kind of waiting for that cataclysmic Saturday, right? And a lot of people were starting to hype this one. It's the middle of October, conference races are starting to heat up. So many top teams were on the road today. I think 9 of the top 15 were on the road facing road tests today. So it had the makings of something that could be absolutely seismic, and it absolutely delivered. It's one of those Saturdays where you're just thankful if your team survived. And if your team did lose, hopefully by now, as you're watching us, if you are tuning in, your team lost today or barely got by, you're just chalking it up to, one of those Saturdays at this point.
There were a lot of stressful finals, a lot of conference games that went right down to the wire. As we're talking, Missouri just put the final touches on a 23-17 double overtime win over Auburn. Eli Drinkwitz is now 22-0 against unranked opponents. Hugh Freeze now has the same amount of ranked victories as the interim coach at UAB, who coached his first game today. So we've got a lot to talk about, a lot to dive in. But I think we got to start at the top. Our big three for this week. We'll get into Miami going down here in a minute as well. We've got Notre Dame and USC, Georgia and Ole Miss, and the Holy War to break down. Trey, dealer's choice here. Where do you want to start tonight?
I want to start with the Jeweled July because I think that has the biggest impact. I guess maybe not of those 3 games on the college football playoff race, but I was really impressed with Notre Dame tonight, just getting it done and staying in that playoff race.
Yeah, certainly backs against the wall for the Fighting Irish. And tonight, it felt like it was the Jeremiah Love show. We'd been kind of waiting for that breakout game, that performance where he just took over and asserted his will. And brother, that was tonight. Over 220 yards rushing. Notre Dame wins 34-24. What do you kind of take away as the best storyline from this? Is it that Notre Dame is rolling and is a force and, hey, don't look now, but they're probably going to make the playoffs? Or do you find yourself going back to the well that, man, Lincoln Riley just cannot win the big one on the road?
It's kind of both of those, right? Because Lincoln Riley, we highlighted it in the preview show, 1-5 at USC on the road against ranked opponents. The one win was against UCLA in his first year there. So not exactly a road game in the sense that they're traveling across the country or have a long travel. But yeah, I mean, it's just more misery for USC, regardless of the coach in South Bend. This has been a house of horrors for them for the last 15 or so years. They haven't won there since 2011. The last big moment it feels like they had there was 20 years ago with the Bush Push, when there's something really on the line when they're playing in South Bend. So this is what I thought Michigan could do to USC. And maybe this is what, going on the road is a different animal. Getting to play at home when your opponent's coming across 2 time zones, big benefit for USC in that scenario, and credit to them for taking advantage of it. But then you go back across the country. You're playing in South Bend, Indiana. You're playing across 2 time zones yourself. It's pouring down rain for a good chunk of this game. There's just a lot of sloppy mistakes. Kicking is a disaster for your opponent, and just a really bad situation there. But Notre Dame was way more prepared to win a game like that than USC. You saw Jaden Mayava struggling with accuracy at times. He threw the couple of picks, just drive-killing interceptions a couple times. And Notre Dame, like you said, it was the Jeremiah Love show. They had the workhorse back to hand the ball to 23 times and just let him go. And that's what Michigan couldn't do last week in Southern California. Notre Dame gets it done at home. And it's another team that I feel like is showing that they have multiple ways to win. We've seen Notre Dame win with CJ Carr slinging it around the yard, right? Going to those wide receivers. We've seen them win where they're putting up 63 points against Arkansas. They need their defense a little bit more tonight. The defense stepped up when they had to. USC got some yards, especially early on. This was a game where the offense had to step up, and they were able to lean on that run game to put up the number of points that they needed to win this game. So Notre Dame is hitting another gear at the right time, and that was really the last massive test. College football can throw a curveball at you at any time, but now you're really starting to put them. I think a lot of people are going to start putting them back in the playoff field in their brackets this week because there's just quite honestly not the big obvious speed bump now.
Well, that, and I think that Notre Dame has been putting together some pretty complete performances too, right? I mean, in our old podcasters poll, you've seen them sneak back up the rankings. Sometimes they're even back up in the top 12, right? And it's just been because the best of Notre Dame, outside of those losses to Texas A&M and Miami, has been one of the better teams in the country. And I think it's because of CJ Carr and the job that he's done at the quarterback position. Today, they had weather, they needed to run the ball, and it was Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price just really put USC in a locker. Over 300 yards rushing as a team. Conversely, USC only had 68 yards as a team. I feel like maybe box score watchers are going to look at it and go, oh, well, Maiyava threw 2 interceptions, so there's your problem. Jaden was not the issue tonight. USC got theirs through the air, over 300 yards passing. The passing game looks fantastic, but
it was a game where they needed a running threat.
Exactly. When you have weather, when you've got a tenacious front and a defense that is opportunistic and can make plays like Freeman's Irish are, you need to be balanced, and you cannot consistently win those kind of games exclusively through the air. And I felt like that's exactly what we saw there tonight. I feel like Notre Dame has not only passed the remaining real test on their schedule, but I feel like from an X's and O's standpoint, they've answered the questions that I had, right? Could this team rebound? Could Jeremiah Love find that gear that we were familiar with from last season? And I feel like they've passed those tests. I feel like even though the offensive line continues to suffer injuries, they were starting a third string center tonight. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. They were still able to move the pile. Culture wins. I feel like Freeman, for all the funky losses that he's had, all the head scratching moments in his career, Notre Dame knows how to bounce back. And I do not want to see them come November or the playoff. I even texted you.
Yeah.
I was thrilled that we played them in week 2 and got that win out of the way early, because right now I want no part of that train that's coming down the tracks.
Yeah, they are going to be a scary team in November, and it looks like December at this point. Their losses are aging well, too. Well, maybe not Miami as much this week, but the losses overall are aging pretty well. When you talk about a combined, I guess, 13-1, losing those 2 games by 4 total points, committee's going to totally forgive that for a team like Notre Dame come December, as long as they keep winning. They can't have the oopsie game like Marcus Freeman is prone to. And there are still some landmines on the schedule, right? I think they go to Pitt. Service academies can be tricky if you're not in the right headspace that day. Sure. But this looks like a team that has really found its identity, figured itself out, and is ready to make a statement and could make another deep run.
Are you ready to kiss USC's season goodbye? This is their second loss on the year. It's their second conference loss as well. You know, you have teams like Michigan and Iowa picking up conference wins tonight, and they move ahead of them in the standings. Are you pronouncing time of death on USC's season for anything meaningful, or do you still think that there's something at play here?
I don't think there's a team left on their schedule that they can't beat if they bring their A game and have their best ball, right? You look at their schedule, they're going to Nebraska. They have a bye week next week, and then they go to Nebraska. Not high on the Cornhuskers right now after what they showed in Minneapolis Friday night. Then you got Northwestern at home, Iowa at home. You go to Eugene, but I mean, maybe Indiana found the blueprint that maybe something USC can exploit. And you host UCLA. There's not a game on that schedule that they can't win, that I'm just 100% writing them off. But to say that they need to win out to go to the college football playoff. And if you're asking me if they're going to win out all the way through November, I don't think that that's a sane bet to make. But 9-3, I think is certainly still on the table. And a 10-win season, that would show quite a bit of progress for Lincoln Riley. So maybe the goals have been adjusted just a little bit, but I still think there's quite a bit to play for USC this year.
I think right now there is still something to play for, but I'm going to pronounce time of death on their season. You talk about you talk about the struggles that they've had on the road. Yes, they go to Nebraska, and we're not scared of the Huskers. I mean, Minnesota abused Nebraska every way they could on Friday night. But you talk about maybe your season on the line in the penultimate week of the regular season, and you've got to go to Eugene. No, not a chance. So I'll plant the flag right now. USC is looking at a ceiling of 9-3, and hey, if they end up knocking off the Ducks in probably a top 5 Ducks team by that point, once again, I'd imagine if they knock off Oregon in Eugene, then clip this and have all the fun you want with it. But I'm telling you right now, USC season for all intents and purposes is over. So let's move on to a matchup, Trey, where I was promised pregame that why even bother showing up? This is not going to end well for Georgia. The red and black machine rolls down the tracks 43-35 over Ole Miss. The vibes, the juju, everything. Lane Kiffin's posting thirst traps this morning. It feels like it's going towards Ole Miss. And then nobody signed up to play defense today, Trey. I mean, it was abysmal to be a defensive coordinator or anybody that loves tough-nosed football through the first 3 quarters, really. I mean, we didn't get consistent stops from the Georgia side until the fourth quarter, but the Dogs find a way to win. They cover as well. It wasn't the statement win that I was expecting for Georgia, where I felt like they were going to impose their will over Ole Miss, but I will say that fourth quarter, you texted me this, Ole Miss had one yard going into their final drive, where then they got stopped on downs. They didn't even get close to midfield. It felt like that was the statement quarter for the Bulldogs, and maybe that launches them into something dramatic for the rest of the year. But still, you find a way to beat a very good opponent at home. I think if you're a Bulldogs fan, it wasn't as pretty as you wanted, but you chalk it up as a win in the SEC and you move on.
I think, anytime you're beating a top 5 team in the SEC, you're just happy with whatever that margin of victory is, even if it's 1, right? So I think if you're a Georgia fan, you had to be a little concerned, maybe even more than a little bit. I think it might have been a couple DEF CONs up from a little bit. When Ole Miss goes down the field and goes up 28-20 right out of halftime, right? Because
at will,
in the back of your mind, even though you're down by 1 going into the half, you've been thinking, okay, we're a second half team. We make adjustments all year long. That's what we've done. We're dominate opponents in the second half. And then Lane Kiffin has a great scripted drive, and they go right down the field to go up by 8.
I think it was one play, wasn't it? It was just
was that the big play drive? I couldn't remember.
Yeah. I think it was just a quick in route to Deshaun's dribbling, and the cornerback looked like he was stuck in quicksand. I mean, that's the most unathletic thing you've seen from a Georgia Bulldog since Kirby Smart took over. So I think it was one play, 75 yards.
You're right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And good correction on that. So yeah, I mean, now you're thinking as a Georgia fan after that, you're just like, well, we're cooked. Like this is not what's going to happen. And the whole third quarter is not going your way. But when they cut it to a 1-point game, they got the stop, they go down the field, they cut it to a 1-point game, I should say. Garrett was over at my house, and I looked at him and said, Georgia's not losing this game. Like Georgia is going to win this game. And sure enough, they got a stop, went straight back down the field and scored and got the last stop, and just dominated the fourth quarter. So it took a little bit, but the second half team showed up for Georgia. Got to give Gunnar Stockton his flowers here, though, too, right? 5 total touchdowns today, almost 350 total yards, doing it with his arm and with his legs. Just one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in the entire country up to this point for me, because he gives that offense another gear. And like I said on the preview show, it's not always going to show up in the scoreboard. It did today with 43 points. Sometimes that extra gear might actually look like 20 on the board, but they are in control of the game. They're playing a different style of game. They knew they needed to put up a lot of points today, and they found that extra gear. It was on the back of Gunnar Stockton, and he delivered. Once again, it's second time this year, he has put the team on his back in a shootout and found a way to win.
Yeah, threw for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns, also ran for 59 yards and a score. And I thought the rushing game for Georgia was it was something that I highlighted in the pregame episode. 221 yards for the Dogs on the ground. They held Ole Miss just like I thought they might. 88 total yards. And the leading rusher was Trinidad Chambliss with 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kwan Lacey got 2 scores, but it was 12 carries for 31 yards. That's 2.6 a pop. If you're Georgia, you'll take that every day. Now, Ole Miss, it felt like for most of the game, didn't necessarily need the ground game because Ole Miss was getting whatever they wanted through the air, and it was kind of quick chunk plays. And it did not instill a lot of confidence in that Georgia defense, but you find a way to win. I think if Georgia can figure out what on earth is going on in that secondary and why that and maybe they can't, maybe it is that they just don't have the athletes that they thought they did on the back end. Because Trey, I thought multiple times during this game, I have never seen a Georgia team in the Kirby Smart era look as slow and confused as this Bulldog team does at times. And I don't know if that's on Glenn Schumann, the defensive coordinator. I don't know if that's a talent issue. Kirby Smart is hopping up and down on the sidelines, calling for adjustments and trying to get guys into the right spot. And for the majority of this game, it did not happen. And I thought it was going to cost the Bulldogs a victory at home. So I don't really know what to think about Georgia going forward. I kind of set this game up as I think this is a statement win. I think this is when Georgia puts that Bama game behind them and they say, we are going to be the next team in the SEC. I don't know if you really got that today or not, but it was another feather in the cap of Kirby Smart finding a way to come back in the second half and get a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the difference right now. When you look at all the teams in the SEC that could be contending for that second spot in Atlanta, right? We A&M and Alabama are at the top right now. You got to think that not anyone's going to go undefeated in this conference. No one's going to go 8-0 in SEC play. So when you think about just who's going to be contending for those 2 spots, having Kirby Smart on your sideline is a huge, huge advantage. I know I've made much about him not taking the points against Alabama. I think this is like the 3rd or 4th time I brought it up on the show.
Didn't do it again today. Chase points again today. Almost cost him.
He did. And listen, that is something, I don't know if he just has like an analytics person in his ear that is like telling him that he needs to go and he's just trusting that over his gut, or I don't know what that is, because that is really out of character for him when you look at his entire career. But outside of that, that's just such an ace in the hole to have that steadying presence on that sideline. And it's going to pay dividends down the stretch. This is not the last close game that Georgia's going to be in down the stretch. They're going to be in some other dog fights down the stretch. And having that calming presence, having that guy that's been there, he's now, other than Stoops, I think he's the longest tenured coach in the conference. I'm struggling to remember if somebody else has him beat on that, but having that steadying presence is going to be huge down the stretch.
He's the longest consecutively tenured coach in the SEC. We forget the 45 minutes or so that Stoops is the head coach of our Texas A&M Aggies.
That's right.
I think on a technicality, it probably goes to Kirby Smart. Based off of what you saw today, Ole Miss suffers their first loss, 3-1 in conference. Georgia, an SEC win ahead of them, 6-1 as well. Which of these 2 teams do you trust to go further, whether that be to Atlanta, deeper into the playoff? You define those terms, but which of these 2 teams, not necessarily head to head, but which of these 2 teams do you trust as a more complete unit to survive the longest?
Georgia, because of the coaching and defense. I think the ceiling of Georgia's defense is much higher than the ceiling of Ole Miss's defense. You see it when they turn it on. You see it in the second halves of a lot of games. You see it in the 4th quarter today. I don't know how long it's going to take in most of these games, but I trust that Georgia defensive staff to make the adjustments. They almost ran out of time today, but they did get those adjustments made and the players to execute what they needed to in the 4th quarter. I just trust that a lot more than Ole Miss right now. I don't trust Ole Miss to not struggle with Washington State. They go to Oklahoma next week, I think. I can't remember if it's off of a bye or if it's actually next week, but the next game's at Oklahoma. Are they going to give up 200 yards on the ground to Oklahoma again? Are they going to let John Mateers sling it around the yard on a road game? Lane Kiffin still has not won an SEC road game in his tenure at Ole Miss, or against a ranked team, I should say. So I trust the coaching staff and I trust the ceiling of Georgia's defense way more than I trust Ole Miss. Ole Miss has the schedule to get to 11-1 or 10-2, but do they have the They had it last year, and they finished 9-3 down the stretch because they couldn't focus on the road against bad teams.
It's a good point. And yes, they are on the road in Norman next weekend against a ranked Sooners team. Should be a good one. Oklahoma had a nice bounce back win over, I think, a bad South Carolina team, but on the road,
South Carolina's bad.
yeah, you went on and dominated the Gamecocks. So that will be fun to watch. Thankful for the post-game press conference that just came up on my screen, because it did confirm that Ole Miss finished the fourth quarter with just 14 yards, which is the fewest number of yards that a Lane Kiffin team has ever totaled while he's been at Ole Miss. So right time to turn it on. If you're the Dogs defense, let's maybe just start with that in the first quarter.
Start a little quicker. Yeah, let's. If we can get that for 4 quarters, we're in business, man. We might be the number 1 team in the country.
I think you're winning a national championship if you get this offense with a defense that shows up for 60 minutes. Talking about showing up for 60, Trey, let's go to Provo, where we've got BYU and Utah, the Holy War. BYU wins this one 24-21. I don't know how strictly that honor code is going to be followed tonight. BYU has a lot of reason to celebrate. They were dogs in this game. We questioned that on our preview show. We were not exactly sure why BYU was getting points, but you and I quickly gobbled those up. And for me, this game was beautiful. Starting with the jerseys, BYU in the all blues, Utah in the all reds. It was a gorgeous jersey from a cinematic perspective. And then we got everything I wanted in a rivalry game. You got nasty physical hits. You got ground games that were special. You had the crowd that was into it from the word go, and a picturesque scene as well there in Provo. This was, I think, for my money, the prettiest game, the most aesthetically pleasing game of the night. And then to get a classic, a 3-point game, Utah, the game was maybe a little bit more in BYU's control than the final score would indicate. BYU was up by 10 with basically 2 minutes left, and Utah scored a touchdown and gave themselves a fighting chance. But overall, I could not be more impressed with what I saw from BYU. The heart, the hustle. Bear Bachmeier just didn't light up the scoreboard, didn't fill up the box score in any sort of huge way. But when his team needed him, he found a way to score that touchdown late on the ground. Stock up for BYU. I think they're for real again this year.
Yeah, both teams ran the hell out of the ball. That was really fun to watch. LJ Martin is a dude. Utah has dudes on the ground as well. Difference was Utah just couldn't get it done in the short yardage situations, right? I think they were 1 of 5 on 4th downs. They were moving the ball fine. They ran for over 200 yards, but just when push came to shove, BYU was way more clutch. Utah also had a lot more untimely penalties in this game too. I think they had an interception taken away late in the game. That would have been a huge play in the late third or early fourth quarter. I think it was taken away with a pass interference, if I recall. So yeah, BYU stepped up to the moment. And I think we highlighted on the preview show that a solid defense playing behind a raucous crowd was going to be, something that really carried BYU to another level. And they ultimately got it done.
They sure did. Very, very impressed with what I saw from BYU tonight. I think Kalani Sitake showing that he can continue to get the best out of this talent, right? And show up when they absolutely need a turnover. They had a big one late. Devin Dampier just didn't see the safety coming over the top and ends up throwing it right to that guy. But you talk about a guy that went from the hot seat where his own fan base is suddenly starting to turn on the favored son. And can our program reach the heights of what we expect here at BYU? And then they march into SMU last year and win a gritty, physical, ugly football game. They give up like six field goals, something like that to SMU, but they never allow them in the end zone. That's the kind of toughness that I think that BYU can continue to win with here in the Big 12. And, listen, when going on the road is suddenly becoming very difficult in the Big 12, just like it is in the Big 10 and the SEC, if you can instill an elite home environment behind your team and make those home games not automatic wins, but highly favored outcomes, boy, then as soon as you start to consistently put it together on the road, I think that's BYU's path to consistently getting to Arlington. And that helps your recruiting, right? That's going to help find you the next LJ Martin. That's going to help continue to bring in the Bear Bachmeiers of the world. That just are winners, man. And that's what a program like BYU, I think, needs to thrive and eventually try and win a Big 12 championship.
And I think BYU, we mentioned this on the previous show also, they're not scared of these close games, whether that's on the road or at home like it was tonight. That's kind of in their DNA at this point. That, hey, we're going to do the fundamentals right. We're going to play a close game, but we're going to take care of our business, win the penalty battle, win the time of possession battle, convert those gritty third and fourth downs more than the other team, stop the other team on third and fourth down more than they stop us. That's going to equate to just more on the scoreboard than it can really show in the box score. So they do the little things right. They are committed to that identity of, hey, we're going to do the gritty, dirty work to win close, hard-fought games. And they're not scared of it. They're gonna be in those games. They know they are, and they got it done yet again tonight. Utah is a really talented team, but they have a lot of transfers. That's not something that they're used to in Salt Lake City. And they're still trying to build that identity. That's an identity that Utah had for the longest time in the Pac-12. We're going to do the gritty, dirty work that these other pretty boy West Coast teams don't want to do. And that's why we're going to win a Pac-12 championship, right? They don't exactly have that instilled in this crop of kids. They're talented enough to win a lot of games in the Big 12. When push comes to shove in a close physical matchup, I just don't trust them right now. I don't trust that they have that in their DNA like their rivals up in Provo do.
Well, and Devin Dampier is still learning, I think, how to be a quarterback at the major college football level, right? And
absolutely,
to be honest, in his defense, he passed a lot of those tests tonight. 20 of 36, 244 yards.
Much better performance. Yeah.
Much better performance, 2 touchdowns, but it's that interception late that he's got to find a way to get rid of. And unfortunately, like, you go back and you look at the tape, and he was keyed in on the corner route the entire time. He never saw the safety. I think it was cover one. I think it was just a high single safety. And he never sees the safety migrate from the middle of the field and come right over top of that route. Those are the things that you've just got to learn. And, listen, a lot of quarterbacks never do and don't play well on the road at all. I think Devin Dampier is a tremendous athlete, and I think he has everything in front of him. He has improved from that game that we saw against Texas Tech, where it just felt like, man, this might be a foreign language right now in the Big 12. I was so impressed with the effort and the results that he put on the field. You take away that turnover you mentioned, you take away some of the penalties, the sloppiness that you saw from Utah, maybe it's a different ballgame. But turning to the schedule, BYU is now in first place, Trey, in the Big 12. They're 7-0. They're the last undefeated team in the Big 12, with Texas Tech falling earlier today. Their remaining schedule looks like this. They go at Iowa State next week. That's a 2:30 p.m. game on Fox. I don't know what to think about Iowa State, to be quite honest. I think that could be a fascinating game. Then
different team at home. Different team at home,
Iowa
State.
Absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. At Texas Tech, which suddenly also might be for first place in the Big 12. We'll see what the Red Raiders rebound with. Versus TCU, at Cincinnati versus UCF. As far as the schedule goes, this is one of the tougher remaining schedules in the Big 12. So, kind of put you on the spot here. What do you feel like the ceiling for this BYU team is?
I mean, the absolute ceiling is 12-0 if they play it fully to that identity. I don't think anyone's going to go 12-0 in the Big 12 because, like, someone's going to come up and get you. But
yeah, there's your narrative from the preseason.
They can go. I mean, hey, it's pretty close to surviving, brother.
It is.
The two teams I was the most worried about taking it down
lost.
both lost this weekend. So now I just got to have UCLA take Indiana out or something like that. But, yeah, I think tough road trips to Iowa State and Texas Tech. There's a bye week in between there.
Yeah.
I think they can win at least one of those 3 road games. I don't know if it's Cincinnati. I don't know if it's Iowa State. I don't know if it's shocking Texas Tech and Lubbock and really sending their season into desperation mode. But I think they can win at least one of those road games and then take care of business at home. And then you're looking at 10-2. Depending on if tiebreakers break your way, you might be in Arlington.
I think I lean 10-2 just because that might be the toughest final stretch in the Big 12.
Just because they're all on the road, man. Those 3 games on the road are insane.
Exactly. 3 of the 5 on the road. And we're just kind of throwing Cincinnati in there as the afterthought. Playing in
They're
Nippert
6-1.
Stadium, has not been super easy for Big 12 opponents. They are 6-1 this year. The the Cincinnati Nebraska debate that we had last week in the comments section of our all podcasters poll, that's been put to bed
I
officially as
feel
well.
pretty vindicated.
I do
feel
too.
pretty vindicated on that.
I absolutely did too. So anyway, it's it's going to be a fun stretch to watch for the Cougars. There's no doubt about it. So, if you've got a thought, if you're listening on the podcast side, swipe up. If you're in the Spotify app, leave us a comment. I'd love to know where you think BYU finishes from here. Trey, let's move into our conference scoreboards, and we got to start with the ACC because without a doubt, I think the biggest single result that you saw outside of these big three actually happened on Friday night. And that was when Jeff Brom and the little Louisville Cardinals went into Miami and walked out with a 24-21 win over the Canes. Jeff Brom, Trey, is now 4-2 against top 5 teams in his career, and he is 4-0 in the regular season. What did you see and like from the Cardinals on Friday night?
Tenacious defense, a really fun offensive scheme that makes the most of Miller Moss. We talked about that in the preseason, right? Miller Moss, I think, when he's on, I think has the highest ceiling of any quarterback that Jeff Brom has had at Louisville.
Sure.
But Jeff Brom's scheme can elevate quarterbacks that are not consistent and give them a lot more consistency that's built into the scheme. So many college coaches would be so much better off if they just scheme things open for the quarterbacks and made it really simple. Mm-hmm. And that's what Jeff Brom does a great job of doing. That's why a lot of quarterbacks are very successful in his system and maybe not so successful elsewhere. But I think that the opportunistic defense, the headline is Carson Beck throwing 4 interceptions, right? But the plays that those defensive backs for Louisville made on a couple of those balls to just stop drives in their tracks, not let Miami get any momentum, and then just communicate that this was going to be a dogfight and you're not going to get out of here easy. I loved it. I loved the swagger that defensive backfield was playing with. I loved the celebrations that they had when they came up with those picks. It was awesome. And then on the other side of the ball, man, Miami not beating any allegations of what we were just worried about. We kept highlighting, man, that schedule really softens up. They're past the toughest part of the schedule. But we knew that we knew they were going to slip up on at least one of them. And now they're really playing with fire because, Mitch, they don't control their own destiny anymore to get to the ACC championship. There were 3 teams that were undefeated in conference play going into today. Duke got knocked off by Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech and Virginia are undefeated in conference play. Neither of them play Miami. So they can both win out, and they don't play each other. So they can both win out, and then Miami's out in the cold.
And I think there's maybe another loss looming on Miami's schedule now. You saw the blueprint from Louisville, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to happen on this week, but you've got to go to SMU. You've got to host NC State, a team that can put up a bunch of numbers. Notre Dame gave the template for shutting them down, but they can put up good offensive stats. And you've got to host Pitt. Host Pitt. You've got to go to Pitt.
Yeah.
The final week of the season. Until they do it, man, I mean, what have we been saying all season long? Until they do it, I just don't know that there's any reason for me to put emotional or financial stock in Miami because there's always something. And I didn't necessarily feel like Cristobal cost them this game. I didn't feel like there was any coaching malpractice like we've seen. Like maybe Miami got a little conservative down the stretch.
Chunking the ball around the yard when your quarterback has 3 interceptions already late. I don't know, man. I get not wanting to play. There were a lot of people complaining that he was playing for overtime with the play calling down the stretch. I didn't necessarily agree with that. I thought, you go to overtime and let your talent win out eventually. Maybe. I don't know. Like I thought it was a little too risky to let your quarterback, who's obviously having a bad day, keep chucking it late.
Well, and did you see Beck actually got, I don't know, it felt like it was a little dramatic.
I think I think the way that's being framed, I think I know what you're about to say, and I think the way that it's being framed is a little
the clip where
exactly how he was intended.
The clip where he explains, I think it's is it the last interception or is it the third? Yeah. It's one of the interceptions, that he's explaining basically his wide receiver ran the wrong route. And if you listen to the first 10 seconds of that clip, I thought, oh man, that didn't sound good. But then he explains it was an option route. And so he read it one way and the wide receiver ran it, I think, the other way. Now he does say the wide receiver ran the wrong route, but that clip floating around Twitter, I think it was Danny Cannell that tweeted it out, which, again, noted Florida State guy. I didn't necessarily feel like Carson Beck was laying the blame for the loss at the feet of his wide receivers or at the feet of his offensive line, which
I thought that was overblown. Yeah.
The offensive line for the first time looked mortal. I mean, against Notre Dame, they looked fantastic. So far in conference play, they had looked fantastic. And Louisville, the team that came into the game with the number 1 pressure rate in America, got home and they flustered Carson Beck, and that has been the recipe. That's what we saw at Georgia. You get in his face, you speed him up, and suddenly his spray chart goes all over the place, and those interceptions really told the tale. So, man, I don't know. I think if you're back in Miami the rest of the way, they certainly can. They should go 11-1. There's not a team on the rest of the schedule that I go, yeah, that team should beat Miami. But given what we just saw, you lost at home to a team that had some very serious flaws that you did not exploit. Makes me nervous. Makes me nervous if I'm a Canes supporter or if I'm back in Miami. Elsewhere around the ACC, very quickly, SMU 35, Clemson 24. Clemson season is officially done. They are a 4-loss team. And now I start to wonder what the narrative will be for Clemson the rest of the way, especially in that locker room where the culture has been everything. They don't take a lot of transfers. They just took a couple of guys for the first time this year. But suddenly, you're looking back at tweets where Clemson says, if you come play for us, we want to know your ring size. And you're going, oh, man, that's all aging really poorly. So I'm wondering what happens the rest of the way with Clemson. Heck of a win for SMU, albeit against a team playing their second string quarterback. But Kevin Jennings looked fantastic. That wide receiving core looked fantastic. And I'm mad at you for talking me out of taking SMU plus the points as my lock of the week.
Listen, man, I did not trust SMU on the road in that spot. I know backup quarterback, all that good stuff. I thought Clemson would look a little bit more prepared than they actually looked, and that's on me. I should not trust Clemson to be prepared for a football game.
Wasn't that off a bye week too? Was that off a bye week? No, I don't think.
No, they smoked Boston College. That's right. I think last week. Yeah.
Which so did UConn today, so that's not really anything.
In good
there.
Company.
Yeah, but good for SMU. UVA, you mentioned the other team that is undefeated besides Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech hangs on over Duke.
Did you watch any of this game?
The Georgia Tech Duke game or the UVA Wazoo game?
The UVA Wazoo game.
I didn't. I went and looked up the drive chart because no way this was on my quad box here tonight. But seeing Wazoo lose in the waning seconds due to a safety, brutal. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I turned this one on because I saw Wazoo was up going into the fourth quarter. Virginia dominated the fourth quarter. They finally turned it on, had erased a 10-point deficit. It looked really good on both sides of the ball. And then I think there was I might be getting my games mixed up, but I think there was a penalty on the ensuing kickoff that really pinned Wazoo back after
at the 3.
Virginia tied the game. And then on the ensuing kickoff, I believe that's when there was a penalty that pinned him back to the 3. Yep. And a game-winning safety with about 2 minutes left to ice that game, and insane insane. Like I've never seen a game decided like that in the waning minutes, and it was crazy.
Yeah, golly, that's the good stuff right there. Georgia Tech 27, Duke 18. Impressive win for Georgia Tech, who
a game that wasn't that close. It was a much more dominant win than that.
Yeah, it was close early, and it felt like, okay, well, maybe Duke's gonna find a way to solidify and affirm why they were favored in this one. Again, Georgia Tech, the undefeated team on the road, they were dogs. They were live dogs in this game. Duke just didn't have the offense. Every time they got within scoring distance, whether it be a field goal or they get down to the 5-yard line on was it the first possession of the game, the second possession of the game, second possession of the game, I think. Drive starts in their own 3, Trey. And they drive all the way down to the Georgia Tech 5, and then they run read option right there inside the 5-yard line. They fumbled the transition. It's picked up by Omar Daniels, 95-yard scoop and score. I am not a football guy from an X's and O's standpoint naturally, right? No one should ever trust me with their play calling duties, no matter how much I might talk during our A&M games. But I know not to run any sort of read option or speed option on or inside the 5-yard line. What are we doing?
You know, I feel like coaches get enamored with that because when it does work, it makes the defense look very silly. And
Well,
it's a
sure.
fun way to score a touchdown. But there's a lot of risks there, man. There's a lot of trouble with the exchange. You just got to be so tight on everything down around the goal line. It's so condensed. And yeah, I feel like the times that there's so many more things that could go wrong than it actually work and set you up with a score. So I'm with you.
Yeah, it feels like if you're going to run the ball, just line up and run the ball. Like, let's not mess around with a messy transition. Let's just commit to it. So a nice win for Georgia Tech. Haynes King is that guy, and now Georgia Tech continues to be undefeated and control their path to Charlotte, which is just I think the best case scenario for me and all the ACC fans that were picking Georgia Tech to do something special this year. Anything else on the ACC before we move to the Southeastern Football Conference?
Pitt got another big win with their
Syracuse.
Post quarterback change there, so 30-13 over Syracuse, and you already mentioned UConn getting the dub over Boston College. The North Carolina Cal game ended pretty funnily late Friday night. Just when it rains, it pours for a team like North Carolina. That was just a really sad ending. They had an opportunity to go in. If you didn't see it, go in for the go-ahead touchdown with about 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
And it was punched out from behind for a touchback to
like inside the one.
Over.
Like
inside the one. Yeah, he was like, if it would have been like a half a second later, it's a touchdown. But as he's about to cross the goal line, it's punched out, recovered in the end zone by Cal, and touchback going the other way. And Cal goes on to win by 3.
Yeah, carrying that ball in his right hand as he's running to his left. I think if that ball is in his outside hand, no way the defender gets there. It's a touchdown, and North Carolina probably wins that game. So, man, you talk about the way that game ended. The revelation from the Pablo Torre podcast. It's been a rough week for North Carolina fans, no doubt about that. Let's move over to the SEC, shall we? Because we've got a number of games to talk about here. Let's start in Nashville, where Vanderbilt knocks off LSU for the first time since 1990, Trey. The first time in our lifetimes that we've seen the Doors top the Tigers in football. And I'll start it with this. Can you give me a case why Vanderbilt should not be in contention to win the SEC or to make it to the college football playoff?
I can't, because they look like a complete team right now. I know they struggled against Alabama, maybe the elite of the elite in the SEC on the road, but is there a team in the SEC on a neutral field that you don't think Vandy would at least stay within a score of? Because I don't. I'd be terrified if they were on my team schedule this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think the athleticism for Vanderbilt, the magic-making ability that you see from Diego Pavia. I mean, he truly is the closest thing that we've seen to Johnny Manziel or, Lamar Jackson since the heyday of the mid-2010s. But my brother was texting me watching this game just kind of in awe of the Vanderbilt offense. And I said, I don't schematically, I don't know how you defend them because they've got the speed to go east-west. Their wide receivers find ways to get open. Diego Pavia is kind of untackleable. And then the big X factor for them, Trey, is the tight ends. Man, you think you've got everybody covered up, and then a tight end just slips out of a blocking scheme and is wide open underneath, and it's a 15, 20-yard gain. We saw that on repeat against a very good LSU defense and a very good defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. And it just didn't matter, right? Vanderbilt could match them from a physicality standpoint. It felt like they were a little bit faster at certain times as well when they really needed to be. And it just felt like a case where a solid offensive game plan, this offensive game plan, was going to beat whatever the defensive coordinator threw at him.
Well, and I think the biggest difference here, we talked about the struggles of LSU's offense ad nauseum on the preview show, and they looked better today. They were moving the ball, but the big difference was Vanderbilt converting their opportunities into touchdowns and LSU's drives stalling out, because in the first half, I don't think there was a punt in the first half, but LSU converted four scoring opportunities to 13 points. And Vanderbilt was 2 of 3, but scored 2 touchdowns. So they have the lead at the half, and they're getting the ball out of the half. So, yeah, LSU, their offensive woes, they found a new way to be extremely frustrating on offense today. And that's a credit to Vanderbilt's defense, too. They really bowed up after LSU got inside the 30 on multiple occasions.
Yeah, to your point, no punts in the first half. LSU missed a field goal, and then Vandy turned it over on downs the very next possession. But other than that, it was field goal, touchdown, field goal. Around those. So, yeah, not a lot of traditional defense played there in the first half. The second half, the fourth quarter specifically, it was stop after stop on both sides. But by then, the damage was done for Vanderbilt, and they get a massive win. I think Vanderbilt was 17th? Yeah, 17th in the AP. LSU was 10th. With the number of teams that lost this week, well, I was going to say, I think Vanderbilt might be a top 10 team.
I was going to flip it on the other side, and we talk about the losers a little bit here. Are you going to put LSU in your all podcaster poll?
No.
I'm not either. No, they're going to fall from 10. They're going to fall from 10 to all the way out because their only good win is a team that now has 4 losses.
Yeah, they beat Clemson, Florida, and
South Carolina.
So, oh my gosh. So all of their wins are against teams with at least 4 losses. That's brutal. That is brutal. I guess before we move off of this, another disappointing game for Brian Kelly. At what point do we see them go down the Penn State track where I know it's an audacious buyout number and you gave him a 10-year contract right off the rip. Shout out Scott Woodward. But at what point do you seriously have the conversation that, hey, Brian 8-4 is not going to cut it here?
You're still alive for the playoff. I know it doesn't feel that way right now, but you have 2. You're still mathematically alive for the playoff.
Yeah.
If you beat A&M, you set up a massive showdown in Tuscaloosa where you're playing for everything. If you lose both of those games and already have 4 losses before closing out with Western Kentucky and at Oklahoma, there's going to be some conversations had. I don't know where those and Arkansas too. Yeah,
you host Arkansas.
You host Arkansas. Yeah. Bobby Petrino's still going to be coaching for his job at that point. So there's going to be some conversations had. If you lose to both A&M and Alabama, there's going to be some backroom meetings where some deals are going to be made at the very least.
Oh, stay away from any tarmacs, Brian Kelly. That might be hazardous for your health. Elsewhere around the SEC, Alabama beats Tennessee third Saturday in October. That one was missed the note 37-20.
37-20, yeah.
Folks were lighting up their stogies with about 6 or 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The celebration started early in Tuscaloosa. I said it on the show. I said it basically to anybody that would listen. Alabama minus anything. I liked the Tide in this matchup. And listen, it could have been a lot different, but I saw, I guess it was maybe that SEC podcast went live with an emergency podcast, Poor Cousin Shane. They said that Tennessee blew this game, and I think they're probably being a little bit dramatic, but without a doubt, the Tide, no pun intended, turned in this game when Joey Aguilar threw a pick 6 from the 2-yard line with 2 seconds left in the first half. You were driving to make that. I think it would have been a 3-point game.
It would have been 16-14. It would have been 16-14.
Yeah. And instead, you throw a 100-yard pick 6 because you basically threw it right to the corner. I mean, it was just a simple play action bootleg, and you had a guy run into that front pylon, but the corner was standing right there. There was not a play to be made, and Aguilar threw it anyway.
Yeah, it was a true push the wrong button on the controller moment from Joey Aguilar. Because you're right.
Hasn't done that.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. But you're getting at least 3 there. You're probably getting 6 or 7, and it's a completely different game if it's 2-point game at halftime. But instead, you're trailing by 2 scores, 2+ scores, and it was off to the races for Alabama after that. After they got that, there was a safety in this one too early on in the second quarter, but
where Aguilar just kind of like tripped.
Yeah, it was odd. It didn't even get credited to anybody. It was just credited a team safety for Alabama. So to Tennessee's credit, they came out and scored and cut it to 10 points to start the second half. But yeah, Alabama's offense was just too much down the stretch of this game, and giving them a multi-score halftime lead is basically just it's game blouses at that point. It's not going to be a good time for you in the second half if you're spotting them 2 scores at halftime.
A little bit concerned about the Alabama rushing attack in this game. They run for 120 yards, but Jeremy Bernard is the leading rusher.
That was odd.
For 49 yards. Daniel Hill led the team, Jam Miller led the team in carries, but 12 for 15, just 1.3 a pop. Daniel Hill had 7 for 34. So it was kind of running back by committee and then some for Alabama. But I wrote in the notes that Ty Simpson won this game with consistent passing through the air, 253 and 2 touchdowns. And then they won this on the back of the defense specifically. I felt like the defense stepped up in several key spots to turn the game on its head at the end of the first half, and then to hold Tennessee from really seriously getting back within this game. I think the closest they got was 10 points when it was 30-20. But it never felt like Tennessee was fully going to come back in this game. And I think that's a massive credit to Kalen DeBoer donning the black hoodie and the defense as well.
Absolutely. And Ty Simpson, just to give him some flowers real quick, I still think he's the best quarterback in the SEC for my money right now. This was a baseline performance for him. And if this is your baseline, going for 250 and 2 and just taking care of the football, putting your head down, doing your job and not making things interesting by your play, that's amazing, amazing thing to have for any coach. Any coach in the country would love to have that as just a baseline performance. So shout out to Ty Simpson. He is, he might be my Heisman frontrunner right now just because of how he's playing.
I love that. I think he's probably the most consistent quarterback in the country. I've been moving him up my personal ranks. I've talked about top 10, about top 5. Last week, I believe I talked about top 3. And now, I mean, he might be number 1, quite honestly, just because of what he has been able to deliver. The other
Fernando Mendoza might have something to say about that.
That is
fantastic day today.
Absolutely true. Slow start for Indiana. We'll get there, but roared back to life and just destroyed Sparty. Other finals in the SEC. There's one game I still want to talk about, but the other games: Missouri 23, Auburn 16. That one final in double overtime. Auburn led this game basically the entire way and finds another example of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Hugh Freeze has one ranked win in his time on the Plains. I've got to be feeling that we're nearing the end of that whole debacle, because, I mean, it's just nobody has gotten less out of more than Hugh Freeze at Auburn. It's been terrible. Oklahoma shellacked South Carolina 26-7. They found their running game. The Sooners did 171 yards on the ground.
Yeah, Blaylock had a nice day, right?
Yeah, Torrey Blaylock, 101 yards. And, I just wrote that in my notes. We talk about, other people, other shows talk about Cocktober, right? There's some big brands that say Cocktober is a dangerous time. And sure, South Carolina is dangerous at home. But Trey, do you know what Shane Beamer's record is in Cocktober?
I know Grok had some big things to say about this. I can't remember the exact number, though.
I didn't go and look at Grok. I just went and counted personally. Shane Beamer took over in December 2020, so his first season was 2021. He's 5-10 now in Cocktober. There is zero reason to believe that South Carolina is more dangerous in this month than they are in any other month out of the calendar year. And in fact, I think that Cocktober has been invented by big tickets to sell and get butts in seats, because quite frankly, this team is not very good.
Big train, maybe, to get people big train. A big freight is maybe trying to will this into existence. I saw the Grok tweet. Grok kind of roasted Cocktober because it's quoted the same stat you just did. The record, I guess, was 5-9 at that point.
Yeah.
But the actual good month is November. If we just, but Cockvember doesn't just roll off the tongue.
Doesn't roll off the tongue, no.
Might be a little too TVMA for this show. So we gotta let's just keep moving.
That's right. And then Florida beats Mississippi State 23-21. Hilarious ending to that game where like a 350-pound defensive tackle drops back into coverage. Blake Shapen throws it right to him, driving to win that game. Napier still booed off the field despite earning a win over Mississippi State. Certainly feels like there's a really good chance that he's not employed by the University of Florida sometime tomorrow morning. We'll see if they pull the trigger or not. There have certainly been those rumors, but Trey, the final game in the SEC to talk about is the shootout in rainy Fayetteville. Texas A&M 7-0 for the first time in our lifetimes, my friend. They win 45-42. My first note in this game is, okay, now we're good. That one probably took a couple of years off my life. There was no reason for that game to be that close other than the fact that this is what we do against Arkansas. We play close, just ridiculous ball games with all kinds of funny stuff happening. They found a way to win. This is not a game that Texas A&M take Arkansas out of the equation. A close game on the road is not a game that Texas A&M typically finds a way to win, and yet Elko is doing it.
Yeah, I mean, this was a typical A&M Arkansas game, right? It was a different venue than we've had the last few years. It's away from Jerry World, but it's a close game down the stretch when it maybe shouldn't be. It takes 5 years off your life, and A&M finds a way to win. That's an A&M Arkansas game in a nutshell. Good to see that travels to Fayetteville as well. But,
yeah,
man, what a weird game. It was 21-6 with 3.5 minutes to play in the second quarter. I said to my wife, who did not care that I said this, but I said it anyways, it's not going to be this easy. It's not going to be just a runaway victory. And sure enough, Arkansas found a way to score 2 touchdowns in that waning 3 minutes of the first half, cut it to 21-20.
A minute
every
40.
Time.
14 points in a minute 40.
That's insane. Anytime A&M punched, Arkansas punched right back, to their credit. This is obviously a team that is fighting harder for Bobby Petrino, and a team that is talented and is going to get somebody in the SEC. They are not going to go 0-8 in the SEC. Anytime you play them and you win, I think you just shake their hands and get the hell off the field and be thankful that they didn't get you, because they're going to get at least one team. Really glad it wasn't A&M. They found a way. SEC officiating is awful. We can
horrendous.
just retweet that segment every single week.
Yep.
But hey, you're 7-0, first time since 1994, and you can get the hell out of Fayetteville, Arkansas for the foreseeable future. That's a big win too.
Sure is. And I think the case for Texas A&M to continue winning, they've got a big one on the road in Baton Rouge next week, leg 2 of the 3-game road trip against Arkansas, LSU, and Missouri. The good for Texas A&M is that the offense scored on 7 of 10 possessions, and it would have been 8 had a soft holding call not taken what would have been the backbreaker away from Marcel Reed. He had a 50.
And one of those 10s was kneeling. One of those 3 was kneeling it out at the end, right?
So then actually, you know what? If it may be 7 of 11 with.
I think they punted. I've got the drive time pulled up. I think they punted twice and had the kneel out. That's it.
Okay, so it is 7 of 10. So my number was right.
Yeah,
should have been 8 of 10 though, and that would have put A&M up 17. Holding is what it is in the SEC. Sometimes it gets called, sometimes it doesn't. We won't go into that.
Sometimes the ref has Arkansas plus 7.5, and they can't have a long touchdown run, so they got to find a really soft hold.
That back door screamed open on that last drive for the Hogs. There's no doubt about that. Marcel Reed was accurate in this game. The big complaint that we've had with him is, one, that it feels like he's spraying from the hip at times, and I did not see that tonight. He had a couple of nervy throws in the fourth quarter, which made us nervous for sure, because it was like, oh, shoot, this is clutch time, and now you're starting to tighten up as well. But he took care of the ball tonight. That was massive. Not turning it over, I think, was one of the big keys to victory. And this offensive line, man, like Marcel could have baked a cake on some of those passing plays. He had all the time in the world that he needed. And then when he didn't, on the few cases where Arkansas did burst through the line of scrimmage, Marcel finally used his legs. and his legs were a massive reason why A&M was able to continue to extend drives. I thought their ability to convert third downs was big tonight. And, listen, it's heady territory, uncharted territory. I told my wife as we kicked off for that game, the only reason I'm nervous about this is because we've been here before. A&M has started 6-0 multiple times in the last 2 decades, and week 7 or week 8 is when it literally all implodes, and you have an embarrassing loss to a team that really shouldn't have any business beating you, and that could have been Arkansas today. They found a way to win. The running game was huge. So good win for Texas A&M. The backdoor cover made it closer than it actually was, but I think there's a lot of confidence going into a night game in Baton Rouge next week, which you have not had, like, maybe ever in our time in the SEC. When have you ever felt confident about an A&M team going into LSU to win at night?
2021, because they had already announced they were firing Ed Orgeron, and then they lost.
Right, and then the refs took that one away from us too. Yeah,
and a Max Johnson legacy drive. But
yeah,
Marcel. Real quick on Marcel, I thought this was his best game as an Aggie. It was the most confident I had been in him getting the ball every time he got the ball, and I think that says a lot. He was, threw for 280 yards. Added 55, should have had over 100 on the ground if that long touchdown run was held instead of being called back from a phantom holding call. But it was an awesome performance for him, and I hope he can build on it again against some better defenses coming up.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think his ability to lead this offense, to hit those short routes, let guys like Terry Bussey and Ashton Bethel Roman that we saw getting space here tonight. He hit a deep ball to ABR. If he can continue to
right
do
on
that,
the money, it was awesome.
Yeah, and take this wide receiving core from just KC and just Mario Craver and open it up to 4, 5, 6 guys the rest of the way, that's a team that you don't want to see come November. And that's a team that I think will have the offense to finish and not fall apart in the last closing stretch like they did last season. So really, really good things from Texas A&M. I think stock up for the Aggies for sure. Let's move now.
There's one more SEC game, Mitch, that we have not talked about. Would you like to talk about what happened in Lexington, Kentucky before we move on?
That is true.
There wasn't much to happen. It was pretty boring, but
that's kind of the problem. Take it away. Very close game in Lexington. Take that one away.
Yeah, I mean, 16-13, Texas escapes Lexington. I don't think any Longhorn fans would have a problem with us using that verbiage because it was
as many teams do.
As many teams do, right? Georgia has famously struggled in Lexington. Mm-hmm. Florida's struggled there as well. But, man, this was just such an odd game that it felt like Texas just never got out of first gear, and Kentucky could not take advantage. Like, the overtime was just a perfect microcosm of it, right? Like, they get 23 or 22 of the needed 25 yards on the first play of overtime, and then they can only get maybe to the 1. I don't even think they got to the 1 after that on that last play. It was just an awful sequence on the goal to go situation for Kentucky that gives the ball back to Texas so they can kick the winning field goal. But Texas played with their food and it almost got them. And this offense just, I don't know the answer, man. Like if you can't move the ball consistently against Kentucky, they finished with 179 total yards tonight. Like that, if that's what you're going to, 47 on the ground. Go ahead.
Do you know what Kentucky was ranked coming into this game in total defense?
I know it wasn't good.
107th in the country. 107, Trey. And they couldn't even get to 200 yards of total offense. I don't know what you say at this point.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like, is it the play calling? Is it the offensive line is a big problem. We know that.
Yes.
But is there no one else that you can try to throw out there on the offensive line?
Not on the offensive line. There's
another
quarterback. There's another quarterback I like on that roster named Matthew Caldwell, but we haven't seen him except for one play.
And he slung it on that one play as well. So, yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of difficult football games on still on the docket for the Texas Longhorns. And good that they got this one, because if they didn't, oh boy, they were this close to not getting it tonight.
Yeah, just for austerity's sake, at Mississippi State versus Vanderbilt, at Georgia versus Arkansas versus Texas A&M. I mean, that schedule that we were saying, oh, the SEC gifted you that. Suddenly, that is a gauntlet of
They
a
did
schedule.
gift them a schedule. They
They
gifted
did.
them Arkansas, Kentucky, and Mississippi State on the same schedule. And the fact that you are struggling with one of those teams is not the SEC's problem.
Well, and even Mississippi State, like going on the road,
That's going to be tough.
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Yeah.
Starkville has bitten other teams from Texas many a time. So
believe you me, it sure has. Maybe the best friend of Texas is that Nick Fitzgerald is also not walking through that door. We'll see. All right, we got to pick up the pace a little bit here. Let's go to the Big Ten. I will let you play dealer here. At the top of our run sheet, I've got Michigan's win over Washington, which was a massive disappointment to you and I both. Ohio State's shutout victory over Wisconsin. You mentioned Indiana earlier. I want to read the drive chart from Iowa and Penn State. So I'll turn it over to you. Where do you want to start here?
I mean, we can go pretty quickly through the Big Ten this week, I think. Michigan was dominant over Washington. This was a game that Washington had every opportunity to at least be competitive in. Yeah. I don't know if they could have won it because Michigan was just better at making the plays that they needed to. But Washington, despite the score being 24-7, was right there. Turnovers killed them. Just inopportune miscues in the red zone or in the scoring zone absolutely killed them in the first half. They had an opportunity to be winning at halftime for sure, and just shot themselves in the foot too many times. Ohio State is really good at football. Wisconsin's really bad at football. And just going around the rest of them here, Rutgers and Oregon, that was the other one that stuck out to me because we were all in on Rutgers and the points. And I have bad news if you're on Rutgers and the points. It was not Rutgers plus 47.
You did not get home if you were plus the points there. Yeah, that was discouraging to look up and see the score. But and Oregon jumped them immediately. I mean, that was never a contest. Over 750 yards of total offense for Oregon. Wisconsin, they have been shut out in back-to-back games for the first time since 1977. I don't know how we haven't gotten some word that Luke Fickell has been let go. I mean, again, the fact that man is still employed. Did you see the picture of the student section from Wisconsin in the first quarter?
Was it empty?
There were like 3 rows that were full, and that was it. That was it. There's nobody showing up to these games.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot better things to do right now with your time, unfortunately.
There sure are. If you're an Ohio State fan, one of those things is watch Julian Sains sling the ball because he's that guy. 393 yards, 4 touchdowns. Carnell Tate got hurt in this game after catching a pair of touchdown passes. I haven't seen an update on him, so that's something to monitor if we haven't gotten word by the time that this episode comes out on the podcast side. Indiana bludgeoned Michigan State, but it wasn't immediate. Michigan State had a lead there for the first little bit. You were talking about Fernando Mendoza, though, being the best quarterback in the country. And I mean, I can let you cook on that for a second if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't have I know he threw for 4 touchdowns today. I don't have his exact numbers outside of that.
313 yards, I believe, through the air.
Sure. Yeah, I know it was over 300. It's another great performance. I said a few weeks ago that he was trending towards being, for me, I'm nowhere near an NFL GM, but I don't know how you take another quarterback in this draft class over him at this point in time. So I think he has made himself a lot of money this year, and he is probably going to be in New York, which is crazy to say for an Indiana quarterback.
It's amazing. Awesome for the sport. Signetti gets extended this week as well. I mean, just great times to be a Hoosier. May I interest you in a 1-point battle in Kinnick? Because the Iowa Hawkeyes scored 25. They beat Penn State 25-24. The drive chart, Trey, looks like this. Starting with Iowa, a 3-play, 3-yard drive that ends in an interception. From there, we go touchdown, field goal, punt, missed field goal, punt, interception, touchdown, punt, missed field goal that is scoop and scored to the house for Penn State. It's 14-10 Penn State at the half. 66-yard blocked field goal. Insane that Iowa even tried that. And
they're trying to kick a 66-yard field goal
from 66 yards out, and it gets blocked and scoop and scored. It was amazing. True Big Ten football at its finest. Third quarter, touchdown, downs, field goal, touchdown, downs, end of game. The final drive for Penn State, 8 plays, all of 27 painful yards. And that was all she wrote. Iowa moves to 5-2. They are still alive in the Big Ten. They're 3-1 in conference. Penn State has lost their 4th straight game since, and this is not confirmed. This was very hasty research. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I believe this is the longest conference losing streak for Penn State since 2004, when they went 5-7 that season. So unfortunately, they did not get the dead cat bounce from an interim coach like UAB or even like Arkansas did, keeping it close against Tennessee. Sometimes you see those kind of inexplicable victories. This time, I mean, this amount of talent, it's hard to see this amount of talent get wasted the way that it is, because this Penn State football team is bad. It feels like they've quit now. James Franklin's getting softball PR questions from College Game Day this morning. It just, things are not well in Happy Valley.
No, and I think we will probably drop them for most of our coverage for the rest of the season, unfortunately.
I think so. Minnesota.
Northwestern is 5-2.
Yes, they are.
Northwestern is 5-2.
Shut out Purdue. I feel bad for Stanford Steve. He's having a tough time of it on College Game Day right now. I think he's got a losing record. He gave out Purdue plus the points. Just kind of felt like a desperation pick, and then Purdue doesn't even hop on the scoreboard, unfortunately. Nebraska almost didn't hop on the scoreboard either. They get dominated on Friday night, 24-6 over Minnesota. The best quote that I saw from this game, Trey, on Twitter, Matt Rule was so serious about not taking the Penn State job, he had to show the Nebraska fan base he was going to stay. Oof, tough scene.
Matt Rule is now 1-10 at Nebraska when Nebraska has 5 wins. So getting to 5 has not been a problem. Getting post 5 has been extremely difficult.
After that's not so great. Take us to the Big 12, shall we? You were really impressed with the Arizona State game plan. You kind of gave this out on the preview show as well. Arizona State wins over Texas Tech 26-22. I will say, evidently not having Baron Morton is a big issue for the Red Raiders, because that offensive game plan just did not sing for Texas Tech on the road today.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to start, because for all the hand-wringing that Will Hammond might be better, this is now 2 weeks in a row where I think you wish you had Baron Morton running the show. I know they got by Kansas relatively easily, but this is a good defense in Arizona State, man. I think Tech has the best defense in the Big 12. I don't think that that's, breaking news here, but outside of Texas Tech, Arizona State is the best defense in the conference. And other than when they didn't have their starting quarterback in Utah, and things just kind of spiraled, this defense can win them a lot of football games. And now having a tiebreaker over Texas Tech in a potential tiebreaker scenario, if they end with one conference loss, it's quite the feather to have in their back pocket. And really, they kind of dominated this entire game. Tech stole the lead late and almost walked out of Tempe with a victory. Because of a bad punt and a great punt return opportunistically from Coy Eaton. But overall, this was a statement win for Arizona State. They were not scared of Texas Tech's physicality. They went toe-to-toe with them and just said, hey, you have a backup quarterback. We're going to pressure him. We're going to make life miserable for him, and we're going to try to make him make mistakes. And Will Hammond really struggled against a ferocious defense from Arizona State, and I loved it. I loved the aggression. I loved that they didn't play scared. A lot of the Big 12 has played scared against Texas Tech this year, and that was not Arizona State today.
No, great victory for Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham gets the first AP top 10 win in Arizona State since 2019 when they beat Oregon at home. So a massive statement for the Sun Devils there, keeps them alive in their quest for Arlington in the college football playoff as well. Sam Levitt looked good. Good to see him back and healthy, certainly after getting destroyed behind Jeff Sims at Utah. So just a really nice result, I think, for the Sun Devils there. Houston is bowl eligible. How about the Cougs, man? I mean, you and I were on the Cougs from the very beginning, but even then, we were kind of thinking 6-7 wins was realistically the ceiling. They're 6-1 after they walk off Arizona with a field goal at the buzzer.
Yeah, I had to get the Gen Z reference in there, but Yeah, it was a fun game. This took up part of my quad box for most of the morning. It was a really fun game. It was shot out of a cannon. There were 2 touchdowns within the first 3 minutes of this
Yep.
one, but yeah, Houston's not going to play a lot of defense against better offenses, and I think Arizona is quietly a really fun team in the Big 12. They're going to get somebody at home. I don't see them getting a lot of wins on the road this
Mm-hmm.
year, but Houston, man, fun turnaround story that I think is just getting started. I saw a lot of their fans are really hyped about this portal season, going and getting some guys in the portal to come to the
Yeah.
H-Town. So
Yeah.
I think this is just the beginning for that program.
Well, and so the schedule the rest of the way, I think we're officially monitoring the Houston to Arlington pipeline. They do play at Arizona State next week, which you probably chalk up as a loss. But then they get West Virginia, a really bad West Virginia team at home. They go to UCF, and then they play TCU and Baylor. They're sitting at 6-1 right now. I think probably the most likely outcome is 8-4, but you could easily see. I mean, if they knock off Baylor or TCU, if you find a way to knock off either one of those,
They beat
nine,
TCU
nine,
last year.
9-3. Wow, that was
Yeah.
a weird game too. That was nobody scored in that ball game.
Yeah, that was weird. Are they at TCU or TCU at home and Baylor on the
They
road?
are hosting TCU. They're up the road at Waco.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think they can split those. I think
Yeah,
9-3 is certainly on the table.
I love that. UCF blows out West Virginia 45-13. No analysis here other than, again, the best comment I saw on Twitter. Rich Rod avenged his loss to Pitt from 2007 and said, quote, job's finished, end quote. Folks in Morgantown are down bad. No doubt about it. Let's end
Tier
this
one.
show.
Yeah, you'll get back.
Yeah, exactly. It's year one. Give it time, but man, this year's the struggle that we thought it was going to be. Let's end this show with the G5 results, and I will give out take my victory lap a little bit here on Boise State. I didn't have something to hang my hat on necessarily in that game against UNLV, other than just playing on the blue turf is worth a bump to the Boise State offense. And boy, they abused UNLV's defense today. They found their running game. Madsen looked decent. The offense just went hog wild on UNLV. And I don't know, Boise State has 2 losses. It's the bad loss to USF in week 1, which maybe just chalk that up to week 1. Kind of hung around against Notre Dame, but being a 2-loss G5 team certainly makes this tricky. They're going to have to run the table to stay alive and have any sort of shot, but Memphis losing today, you've got USF and Memphis playing next week. There's still some pawns that can get knocked over in front of Boise where they're not dead yet, and an impressive win against UNLV was big here.
Yeah, they're going to need quite a bit of cannibalism in the American, I think, just because they did lose to USF, and that head-to-head is just always going to be hanging over them. But yeah, the second half, they really showed they showed the ceiling of their team. I feel like UNLV's defense is really bad. They exploited it. It was 28-24 at halftime, and they turned it on in the second half. And credit to them. That was a statement victory. Looks like they're going to run away with the Mountain West yet again.
Yeah. We might have just lost a playoff team. I don't know. We still runway here, but Memphis losing the Battle of the Bones to UAB. You had this on your quad box. You were watching this game late. What on earth happened for Memphis? I know they lost Brennan Lewis, their starting quarterback. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big part of it. But UNLV, or UAB, I should say, dead cat bounce, right? Shout out to Chris Mortenson's son, who was the interim head coach at UAB. If you remember him from ESPN. But yeah, it was a situation where Memphis, everything that could go wrong for them ended up going wrong. And they still had an opportunity to tie the game late. They had first and goal from the 1, did not punch it in with under a minute to go. That could have sent it to overtime. They could have gone for 2 for the victory. And UAB's defense held strong, kept him out of the end zone, and that was that.
There you go. Cool trophy. Glad that UAB gets a win, something to hang their hat on this year after Trent Dilfer is gone. Now the program, I think, can heal and start to rebuild. So I'm really excited for the Blazer fans out there. Tulane beats Army on a crazy miracle touchdown. Not because it was a crazy throw, but if you haven't seen the clip, the wide receiver kind of bats the ball up in the air and makes a catch there late in the game to beat Army. I feel bad for Jeff Monken and the boys. Like, they just cannot win the close game this year. And I know that's got to be so frustrating for Army fans.
Yeah, but credit to Tulane for finding a way. When it was a game script that really favored Army, the Army was controlling the clock, had the lead late, but Tulane found a way with limited opportunities. So they're right there in the thick of it. They're right there in the thick of this American title hunt as well.
They sure are. And then in the Sun Belt, the highlight that I had, James Madison 63, Old Dominion 27. Trey, this game was 28-27 at the half. This is the script that James Madison has had all year long. They don't pull away in the first half. They keep it close. They play with their food, and then they make adjustments in the break, and they pull away. They intercepted Colton Joseph, I think, on the first play of the third quarter, and then they pitched a shutout after that. Old Dominion did not sniff the end zone from that point forward. And James Madison, man, their only loss is to now a Louisville team that's knocked off the number 2 ranked team in the country. So the Dukes are, I think, well on track to go 11-1. They're right there to get that G5 playoff bid as well.
They play a few too many close games for my liking. I know they blew them out today. They're prone to some close games though, and until we get that figured out, I don't know that 11-1 is fully going to be what I'm buying in on, but they look like clearly the best team on their side of the Sun Belt. On the other side, Southern Miss got another victory today. They're 5-2 after one win a season ago. The Coach Huff effect is in full effect, and they are in firm control of the West. So it's looking like those two are on a collision course. I got to bemoan my Texas State Bobcats real quick before we go. Third straight loss.
Double
when they
overtime,
had the
right?
game. They had it. Yeah, they had it. They were up by 8 with 8 minutes to play and blew it, went to double overtime, lost against their third straight loss, either in overtime or by 1 point.
That's brutal. UNT blows out UTSA and Denton as well. I wonder if GJ and Jeff Traylor, given the seasons that they're having, are wishing that they had jumped ship to a bigger opportunity this past offseason, right? GJ, it feels like things are solid at Texas State. They've got the admin, they've got the financial backing as they go into the Pac-12. Jeff Traylor, though, like, he still continues to complain about NIL and the talent that they can bring in from the portal. And now they're not even winning, man. And in some of these games, they're not being competitive. And so suddenly I'm really wondering if UTSA has flamed out. Texas State, I think, still has runway, and maybe it's just a bad season without a standout quarterback that they've got. Next year in the Pac-12, that might be different. But for UTSA, I got to think that Jeff Traylor's wishing he had gone somewhere else by now.
Yeah, is this year 2 in the American for UTSA or year 3?
Year 3, I think.
Okay. So yeah, he's running out of the excuse of conference transition too.
Yeah, there's no transition happening at all. He's just not stacking wins. So, but shout out to UNT. Great win, great bounce back on homecoming week. Mean Green are absolutely still alive in the American race as well. Nearly an hour and a half, my friend. I think we did some good work tonight. 8-layer Saturday delivers. Thrilled to have had you guys along with it. Let us know your comments if you made it all the way to the end of the live show, the end of the podcast, the video, wherever it may be. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We continue to add followers, subscribers, viewers, etc. every single day on this show. It's really, really fun to see you guys jumping on board with us. So we really appreciate it. Week 9 on deck, a bunch of big matchups to preview come Wednesday morning. You know that podcast will be in your feed. Hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And for Trey Reeves, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And until next time, so long, everybody.